two, one. Welcome aboard. Definitely. Hi. Connect with hands. Touch, agree. Man, the word man actually is connected to hand. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah, it actually is. The word hand is connected to man because you're outstretching. You're reaching forth your hand. You're trying to envelop. By doing that, man's reaching forth himself to excel. To, like this word we're going to get in today. I told you I'd bring you the video that we talked about with transcend, and the word that what we have to avoid, which at times can appear to be something we're participating in, but we don't want to, because that's not going to elevate you. It's actually appears to be that maybe you transcended, but it can be not transcending it. It's just another thing. We're going to get into that. But I thank you guys for being here. I thank all the new listeners, anybody that's always a part of, and anybody sending me messages and texts and in here and or on Instagram. I appreciate you to the fullest, to the maximus overdrive. We don't want maximum fragmentation, but we do want maximum unity. And that's really what we're doing with the fragmentation. It's easy to divide because dividing is fragmented. That's the whole Humpty Dumpty story. Humpty Dumpty looks like an egg, right? He falls, breaks. It's the story of he realized the king and his horsemen can't put you back together again. So this is really telling you, don't look for the governments to put you together again. They'd rather just keep you separated and broken, because that's the game, divide and conquer. And through the fragmentation, which was maximum coming here, before even all this, as you enter in to this abode of the physical, in this reality that we see outside ourselves, that we keep trying to always want to change, but we always want to change it with things outside ourselves, like protest. Doesn't work. You say, how does it doesn't work? When has it? Because you're trying to do something that doesn't work. Everything comes from, the whole reality is projected from within to without. Whether you know how to use your projector or you have any knowledge that you're a projector and that you're projecting this holosphere. There's part of this you're projecting. You're living in an auric field, which is like a hologram. You're projecting, your creator's projecting. They know it. They use your projection to create the reality that they give you, which is what we'd see in the Matrix, right? But what if you took it back, use your projector with the knowledge you have, that you can use it to create your reality you want. I'm going to say what I want. I want one of the main things in projecting. I project a new reality of what? The new reality is of a unity consciousness. Reverse engineer. No, divide and conquer, but energy into the fact is my projection is a unity or Christ consciousness, or oneness consciousness, that we fit like hands and gloves. I don't care what your skin color is, what your eye color is, if you're fat, skinny, whatever it is, tall, short, goofy, model, intelligent, not so intelligent. It doesn't matter. Why does it matter? Because it's matter. It's the physical realm. That's why it doesn't matter, because it's matter. So we have to transcend matter by giving matter a taste of divinity, higher consciousness. It transcends it. So what does it do? It lifts it up at 3D, and then we have a 5D reality playing in a 3D reality mixed with a 5D reality, changes the density, but you can't do it outside of you to do it. You can't go outside yourself and make it 5D. You have to do you first, because that's the only one you have power over. And this is part of what we're going to talk about with these two words of really what's transcending. So let's get into it. These are opposites. They always say opposites attract, which is true. Opposites do attract, but if they don't harmonize, right? If they don't learn how to transmutate, they don't harmonize. That's why opposites attract. They attract through energy and electromagnetic magnetic energy are the feminine and masculine energies, but if they don't harmonize, because they're opposites, right? That's why we're really heavily going in here on learning how to transcend that by the process that I'm going to get into and here future, the 4 processes we go through in the alchemical ascension practices of how the ascension works with the 4 major points that we'll bring out. So we've been fragmented, so our job is to come out of fragmentation into unity by piecing yourself together, remembering. There's a scripture talks about remembering all things, is really putting your member back to your fragmentation and putting your fragments, which are a piece of you, they're your DNA. It's like there's this old thing that I'm a drop of water. I'm like a drop of water in the ocean. But it's Rumi said, no, the full ocean is in a drop of water, which is you, meaning you're the all in the one drop. And that's would be the same thing. You're the oneness that got fragmented, but you're piecing yourself back together. That's why you have to transcend, right? And we went over this word the other day in the last video. What this was in etymology was surpassing, as you can read. It was climbing of, it was ascending, it was excelling, it was going above and beyond that. What you could do would lift you up like climbing a mountain. It extended you upwards because you went through the transcending part of this aspect of yourself. You went through the transcending part of it, so it lifted you up. I'm looking at something and I'm missing something. Integration. The integration part is the transmutation part. When you integrate 2 concepts that are opposite, left and right hemisphere, feminine and masculine, they're opposites, they attract. But if they don't harmonize, they will go against each other because they're opposites. But when they harmonize, or like I said, integrate, now, even though they're opposites, they work together as a team because what one has, the other has, and now with their integration, they actually lift each other up. Actually, now the logical mind is not so logical into not having common sense. The logical mind will give you a higher reasoning through the intuition play. The intuitional mind and the logic mind now transcended through integration of self, right? They transcended. So yeah, this is how this works. This is an alchemical level of ascension. This is a science that we were not taught, but was taught by many of the past about alchemy, right? The alchemical aspect. That's why gnosis, esoterica, these are all aspects that I have actually teaching here. Wasn't able to go to a mystery school. Well, they're not available, but we're getting initiated now, and we're not doing it occultic. We're demystifying the occult. How do you do it? By de-occulting the occult, demystifying the mystic knowledge, and uncensoring, like my things back here, West Coast uncensoring that knowledge which was censored. We don't have mystery schools. This is a type of mystery school. You have to have the initiation within you to receive it. I had to learn the hard way. Quit giving initiated knowledge to the uninitiated. They're not worthy. That's where the scripture says that they'll take your pearls before the swine. It's not calling people swine. It's a mindset. You're an animalistic mindset if you're still below and you're not operating in that, and you're trying to give somebody something that's a pearl of great price, very valuable knowledge. You're giving them a gem and they just plot on it, destroy it, step on it because they have no knowledge of it. I had to be corrected from within, correct myself by the corrector within. Boom, get a butt whooping. Why? Because you're trying to force something that doesn't work. You have to learn that they have to be initiated to receive what you're seeing. So that's why I always say here and lead here usually, I'll say this multiple times, if you're here and this is not for you and you're religious, this is not your place. It's not. If you're coming out of religion and you're open to learn more, come on in and you're open. You're open. You're not trying to bring your dogma with you. You're open to learn because you've had this awakening and you went maybe through a few processes of awakening. And for them who are advancing and not just newbies, but transcending, you know what we're talking about here. So yeah. So when you see it, we went over this, we surpassing, excelling, surmounting, move beyond, climbing over, attesting, just an absolute victorious way to transcend something. But let's look at the other word. This will be something that at times can look like transition, but it's really not. And I said on the last video, if you use this and don't go through the transcending aspect, this is called spiritual bypassing. And what do you say, what is spiritual bypassing? Let's read it. It's a lot to read here. Spiritual bypassing is a tendency to use spiritual practices and ideas to avoid facing personal issues. That's it. It's used for avoidance. It can appear that you went through something by going around it and not dealing with it. And then you come out the other side and you go, hi, I'm with you. Hi. But the transcenders will discern that you're bypassing. But the confusion could be that they both can appear to be alike at certain times. But the reality is, sometimes bypassing can look like transcending to some who are not aware of it. It can somewhat deceive you if you don't know and you have not experienced, because a lot of this, what I'm talking about now, you won't know unless you experience it. I can describe to you the certain revelations, and you revelate and you go, oh, I see that, or I see there's something there. I'm starting to get that. I'm starting to see there's something there. I'm telling you, when I go through the alchemy stuff that I'm going through, I have to stop, go back, read it again, listen again, look up words, because it's pushing my transcension consciousness. I can't go around and say I have it. I have to do it again, because I see there's something, I'm revelating and I'm getting it, but man, you're pushing my consciousness, you're pushing my borders, which I dig and love, but because it's not easy. And I said this so much, I've been seeing this when you take the word sincerity, or you take these words of going through stuff and these fruits of the spirit we used to call in Christianity, you start having integrity. This was stuff that you had to activate because you had to transcend it by going through things that instead of avoiding. So right here we see definitely spiritual bypassing is a tendency to use spiritual practices, but to avoid personal issues, such as psychological wounds, unfinished development tasks, unresolved emotional issues. The term was coined by John Welwood, Buddhist teacher and psychotherapist in the mid-80s. We're going to get into this. So this is something, if you're in the state and you're like, this is interesting, check yourself and start and go and look this up, because you'll find that this is there, and know it. When you experience it, you get it, because like I said, a lot of things in this level you have to experience, but we can avoid things and then think we overcame them, but you never overcame them if you never dealt with them. That's why it's so, when we fall into fragmentation of this reality, to transcend, we really have to do a healing, because we do a lot of stuff. You know your dirt more than anybody else does. You know your weaknesses, and I don't want to call it dirt because we all have it. Things that can knock us kind of off our course, things that can be our weakness, things that don't really serve us, things that cause addiction. Because remember, when you're dealing with bypassing, is a tendency to go along with the amnesia, because the transcending is giving you the remembrance part. The bypassing is keeping you in spiritual cognitive dissonance, or even amnesia, if you kind of coming out of cognitive in a higher state of consciousness, but you're still bypassing stuff. I said on my last video, you have your rear view mirror. There are in your rear view mirror, you can see behind you, but also know there's some blind spots that you might turn and look this way or this way to catch the blind spots, so you don't whip up because the car is too close to you and you didn't catch it on the side or directly behind you in the rear view. And if you go over, then boom. But you might have to look to the left and say, oh, that car is too close for me to go switch lanes. This would be even in this aspect, bypassing stuff, but then appearing by using your practices that you actually transcended it, when you're only fooling yourself, because it's going to get you back with the rear view mirror concept. The mirrors, because we're mirrors, reflections are mirrors, light reflects. it reflects all the time into mirrors. We have inner reflection of ourself when we have alone time, right? When you get into your silence, it's the same thing. You're trying to check your rearview mirrors to find blind spots. Spiritual bypassing will actually not get you, will not serve you. So you need to, if you're in this place that you're a bypasser and you might think you're transcending, check yourself. We've all made the mistake, and the mistake is an easy mistake to make. Just having some more wisdom to understand there's a difference in this, right? There's a difference in roast beef and pork, right? You can even make roast beef to be shredded roast beef, or you can have roast pork to be shredded pork, right? But they're not the same. One's beef, one's pork, but they're both shredded. This spiritual bypassing by doing spiritual practices can look like you're bypassing something you're not. As we already know, we went into the word transcend yesterday with the word of the day, how this really builds you and exalts you going through it. You're transcending. So any problems, don't look to bypass them, you transcend them. Don't look to bypass them, you transcend them. One more time, don't bypass. So let's find out a little bit more about the bypassing. The term was coined, as we said, John Wellwood, a Buddhist teacher and a psychotherapist in the mid-'80s. Here are some examples of spiritual bypassing. Avoiding feelings of anger. So not dealing with your situations. Why do you have anger issues? A lot of us do. Taking them on and just expressing them is you doing the inner work on them. So it's really bypassing a lot, doing the inner work, because we're here to heal. One of the biggest things in Ascension is healing our inner child, healing our inner hurts, healing because even through the fall of this, it almost created a spiritual abandonment issue from where we came. I'm in this physical, and I feel abandoned from the higher, and that's where people will get into seeing this is a prison planet, immediately going into almost doom, right? Gulliver's doom. It creates an imprint on your consciousness and on your energetic field. When you have doom, you have to heal the doom, where everything is nothing good's physically. This is the end. Nothing to look forward to physically. But the material world sucks. And even with Gnosticism, what's great as it is, if you take on a lot of people's feelings about it, is that the physical world's evil. When it's really the physical world within itself isn't evil, people just tend to stay in a low point and don't transcend their lower points. And then the other things go in as you keep going down and down, you're going into other stuff like greed and not caring, not having feelings, not having empathy or sympathy. You're dealing with psychopaths and sociopaths, which is a deep, dark doom imprint is there. But we need to not avoid these situations. Part of it is do the inner work, because we're here to heal and transcend. And when we heal, we transcend. And you may not give, because you're dealing with multiple lifetimes. We will have a video on lifetimes. Multiple lifetimes is to transcend the different hurts that may be afflicted the same. Like I said, even with our inner child, the same inner child you've had in multiple incarnations is the same inner child. It's been with you all the time. That same inner child that feels voided, that feels like it's abandoned, and you don't talk to your inner child, that's bypassing yourself. The inner child is actually, by not healing and working on your inner child, is actually a portal for you, because that's why it says, unless you become a child, you can't enter in. You have to deal with your child aspect of yourself and healing that inner child. And a lot of the healing is acknowledging that you have it, because you never talk to it. Have you ever talked to it? When you start healing it, you start talking to it, because this is your brother that sticks closer than a brother. Why? That inner child has been with you on every incarnation. When it feels accepted, that's a big healing for you, that inner child, and the opening of a portals. Believing that traumatic events are learning experience, or that there's a silver lining to every negative experience. Believing that spiritual like meditation, prayer are always positive.
having extremely high, often unattainable idealisms, right? Feeling detached, hoping that people don't have to look at their relationships in a particular way, dismissing one's need for love and attempt to practice non-attachment. This is heavy. Spiritual bypassing can lead to missing opportunities for growth and can create a split between the human and the Buddha within us. It can also lead to one-sided spirituality with one pole of life elevated at the expense of its opposite. And this is really about balance. This is very heavy. This is why that it goes almost to another word of the day I had a month ago was denial. Denial is another word to go, because I wasn't bringing denial like outer denial. This is denying yourself from taking one pole and believing that one pole and not balancing the center of the other side of it, because everything is about balance. Balance is here, not left or right. That's what's wrong with politics. Everybody goes one side or the other, and that's why it doesn't work, and that's why they run game on you, is because everything's about being centered. The balance is in the center. That's a teeter-totter, and this is a teeter-totter. If I sit on it, the other side, I lift the other side up. If the other person sits on it, then it might start going, it creates a balance, so you can teeter-totter up and down. But what's not happening is being centered. And that's within us as a being, which we need the healing. That's why bypassing can appear at times by your spiritual practice, because you're saying, oh, I meditate, I do this, I do a good deed, but you don't deal with your hurts and your pains and your afflictions, and which are traumas, which cause, these traumas here cause, what do they cause? Spiritual amnesia, which keeps us in samsara, always repeating life after life after life and not having any movement of consciousness. You just keep following that. You're attracted to the same light after physical leaving, and you go jump on the same light train, which takes you into the same place again, not realizing that first light that you're talking about, which I've talked about a little bit and need to do a whole thing about it, which I may, was why you don't run to the white light. But you might have to, because it's the only thing that matches your frequency, because the gold light is the elevation. That's what enlightenment means. Enlightenment, when the reflection hits gold, it creates a gold enlightenment. Mental within. It's enlightenment, not outlightment. The white light appears, but it's the most fragmented. It's a very density into the lower aspects of self. It's a light. Light can reflect. That's why, I just did a video, it hasn't been released yet. And it may be by the time this comes up. It just depends what I decide to do with this. I might do this after I do another, but I have a video that it has played or it's going to play. If this one's first, then it is, but it may be after that, about how you have to look at light. How you have to, like the Luciferian, I did a video on what is Luciferian energy, or what is Lucifer, what is Luciferian energy. It will be released soon. And of course I use my girl Sarah on that one to break it down, but I'll break some stuff down too, and then let her kind of go into it, because she's a good one. Definitely the alchemist. But when I see extremely high, often attainable idealisms, like putting stuff out there is unattainable, and it's really a cover up for your pain, but you feel like you're by putting something obtainable. What's it sound like? Ascending or transcending. But that's why you got to know the difference between spiritual bypassing and transcending. Spiritual bypassing will lock you out and let you remain with the blind spots you did not heal. And a lot of the healing is just acknowledging and going through a process within yourself. Remember, we're even healing with certain things that carry over from other so-called lifetimes, right? Yeah, I was going to say something deep, but we'll do that in a later time with lifetimes, multiple lifetimes. So I was going to go a little bit deep into that, and that's not what this is about. This is about spiritual bypassing. Again, avoiding anger. You have to deal with your anger issues. If you have anger issues, deal with it. Usually it's caused by some kind of abuses, and anger from it that's still staying there, especially when the memories are like a wound opening up again, the scab being pulled off, ripped off. And then using here in the third one, and believing traumatic events, learning experiences, and there's a silver lining to every negative experience. It's true, but when you don't deal with it, you're avoiding, and that's what really spiritual bypassing is, avoiding the healing aspects of dealing with something or taking responsibility. Responsibility is another thing that has to be activated within. If you're not, you can't find responsibility outside yourself. Believing that the spiritual pact like meditation are always positive, they're not. They may lead you into crying. They may lead you into dealing yourself when you're doing these practices, because it's going to reveal and reflect to you of things maybe you needed to change, or maybe you need to deal with yourself in a higher volume of level. And it's not always going to be positive, which to me this is positive, but you're looking at it as by bypassing, it's not positive. You're trying to make a positive or a ascension, a transcending remark out of avoidance. This is really what it is. It's avoiding and bypassing something instead of transcending something. But then it looks like it by do your spiritual practices and your mindset, in which you might say that you're transcending something when really you're just bypassing it, and you're fooling yourself. Would actually be the fruit that would come from that. You're fooling yourself. Or feeling detached, being separated. Whether that's separated from your spiritual or people. Don't look to relationship, hoping that people don't have to look at their relationships a particular way. That would be bypassing. Hoping people actually bypass, or you're bypassing. That's why communication and relationships so important. When somebody doesn't communicate with you, you can't. That's bypassing. Needs a communication, not trying to just do something. Look what I did for you. No, you're bypassing. You're bypassing. And this is ends up being a behavior. Somebody asked me about the word behavior, James. Notice that spiritual bypassing ends up being a behavior, but it fakes the funk as it's transcending, and you're actually fooling your conscious self because you're not dealing with it. You're faking a transcending, which is going to always lift you up. But those who transcend will and have the knowledge are going to be able to discern it. It's whether you're not discerning it for yourself, those who are bypassing. Dismissing one's need for love and attempt to practice non-attachment. Yeah, that love is definitely something that, we need. We need to love, to be loved, right? That's why it's always self-love is part of this. Self-love is going to admit that you love. Again, let me see. I like that actually. Spiritual bypassing can lead to missing opportunities for growth, and that's what I was saying, and can create a split between the human and Buddha within us. And this split would be something that I actually wrote down. I'm going to do this, and it's called. It's actually called. Transcending timelines, or positive timelines, or ascending timelines, and descending timelines. Ascending timelines, descending timelines, organic timelines, synthetic timelines. This would be the timeline split. Because we all know time actually in the higher realms is an illusion, but it's needed. And this is where we got to understand, when something's an illusion like the Matrix, doesn't mean it's not real. It means it's temporal, and it's only in certain spaces. You will not find the same timeline in a lower density like that. It wouldn't be your reality. Time operates different. From this time here, when you go into higher spaces, it would seem slow. And you said, what do you mean? I had this experience a number of years ago where this energetic field I experienced, and like I'm saying, I experienced it. And I was driving 70 miles an hour, and I was like, this feels 20 miles an hour. Why does everything seem slowed down on this realm right now? It does. And I'm seeing things from a very, very faster realm. I was in that for like 3 days. Marissa was in it for like 5 or 6 hours.
we were together this day. And this would be the experience. The time part of that other density I was focusing in made this density in the time. I mean, 70 miles an hour driving the car looked like, man, it's like I could get out and walk and beat this. That's what it appeared when I was seeing from a higher density. And you'll miss out on growth, and it create a split. Like I just mentioned, a split of the human and the Buddha, right? Going into lower density, keeping yourself in lower density instead of raising yourself in a higher density. Remember, Buddha is just like the Christ. It's just a higher conscious embodiment. Buddha means enlightenment. Like I was talking about enlightenment a few years ago. Actually, that's what it means. In fact, Buddha never said, I'm Buddha. He says, no, Buddha resides in every one of you all. You can be the Buddha. So it also can lead to one-sided spirituality, like being, caught in a pole. Like people, that's the same thing, like I said, that we see politically, being left or right sided fully and not being open to what is the truth which we know here. See the game. Same coin, same bird, different wing. They're behind the scenes like a movie, villain, bad guy. They're over high-fiving and having coffee together and cigarettes. They're not enemies. They're acting. But the one-sided can make you, choosing like everything's love. Well, it is, but not all the time. You may not be, you might be bypassing by saying that when you need to go through this hard negative aspect about you and transcend it into a unity of one, which would be transcending, would turn it a negative and positive working together as one, like the feminine and masculine side of the logical brain and the intuitive brain actually now co-create with each other. They're in love. Hey, we're one. We're feminine and masculine. We're one. Your powers and my powers are different. We co-mingle them together and make a bigger reality out of this. But elevated expanse of the opposite. For example, absolute truth might be favored over relative truth, or transcendence may be favored over embodiment. Just picking sides and not being balanced by not learning to transcend. Because transcend the higher you go, it's going to be balance, right? The densities change, but it's going to be the harmonization of balance. The less of the lower frequency, there's more freedom. You have more free moral agency and power. Where here in the lower densities, it seems like it's always a karmic wheel and always a judgment always is there, and the karmic wheel's always shouting at you. Where the higher you go, there may be a little bit of that, but it's like, oh, that's that. But it's not prevailing like it is in the lower density, because this is very dense reality we live in. Let me see if there's anything else here. We'll do some of these examples. Not focusing on the here and now, living in the spiritual realm much of the time, and overemphasizing the positive and avoiding the negative. Being self-righteous about the concept of enlightenment, which is very much so. Humbleness will be taught to you through this experience when you start having, because you're going through aspects of dealing with yourself that will humble yourself. You're learning to, which would really tell me by the spirit, that is, you haven't put your ego to rest yet. And I don't mean rest in death. Ego doesn't die. There's a positive aspect of ego. We'll get into that one day. There's a negative aspect of ego. When you're inverted, the negative is on top. The negative of ego actually wanted to rule the whole house. But when ego goes in its proper place, you have a name. You have likes and dislikes. And it's a follower, and it won't try to assert itself, because it really can't assert itself, because it's been taken out of inversion into vertical. It's right side up now. How do you heal spiritual body? Here's a good one. Identify and tackle spiritual bypassing tendencies. Practices like mindfulness, meditation, journaling, or writing, or therapy can build one's awareness of their own self. Engaging in sincere dialogue with mentors is a great way to increase understanding on the matter. Very much so. Very much so.
Let me see, where were we at before? Source of spiritual bypassing. Let's go over here. It said there, not focusing on the now, overemphasizing the positive and avoiding the negative. Because it's just like your car. Remember, negative isn't always negative. Negative is just an aspect of the positive. It's the other side of the coin or the other side of the pole. If your car battery doesn't work, you can't just jump the positive. You got to put both of them on the negative and positive to jump the car to work again. Just putting it on the positive won't jump the car. It doesn't work that way. So you have to deal with both. The negative isn't always bad. Being overly detached, being overly idealistic, having feelings of entitlement, exhibiting frequent anger, engaging in cognitive dissonance, being overly compassionate. The overly compassionate, which at times we see some very loving people, which they could be authentic, but also it can be a cover-up because it's not. There's an aspect to the other side of the overly compassionate that has been an issue for you and could be the upbringer or whatever, that you don't really deal with it. And pretending that everything is okay when it's not. So being real and just having those conversations is being real, and being real with yourself, and then anybody you would trust in your community, your spiritual community, whether it's mentors or any others that would tell you the truth but love you when they tell you the truth. They're not judgment because they're mature. That we all have these aspects that can come up. That's why the inner healing is the answer. We're here to inner heal, and that's how we will bring our memory back and take responsibility for the things you have done and the mistakes you have done, instead of making excuses for them, which happens quite often with people when, even with an adult child tells you what maybe you didn't lack or have as a parent at the time you were parenting, and then you get defensive about it when you really think about what they're saying. If they're not attacking you from lower consciousness, but they're just being honest and real, and and also approach you with the honest and real because of where they're at, just saying that's just kind of what happens. But I hold no malice or nothing. It's just how it is. I understand that people are in certain situations and didn't know certain situations from their upbringing. Our grandparents and our great grandparents, a lot of times they didn't know. They didn't know, and that's out of ignorance that they didn't know. And then you see that keeps replicating and replicating itself. But spiritual bypassing is not transcending. It's going around something to avoid something instead of going through something which the going through it will transcend you, and actually automatically through the conscious way that this works, through the process, will lift you up into higher spaces. Avoiding it will actually not lift you up. It actually may even drag you down if you keep staying in that state, because you're really doing some damage on your psyche, and you're pretending and you're not being open. And that would be like when I always hear people say namaste, and it's not always namaste. Sometimes we have to put a boot in the tail, and there is no namaste in that. But what I'm saying is that sometimes there's the other side of the coin. Sometimes we have to deal with, especially with healing with ourselves. We've been fragmented in the fall. We've been fragmented through abuses. It's called spiritual. We've had spiritual ignorance and spiritual dissonance. And we've also had fragmented, because the fragmented stuff is not put together. We have a lot of we have spiritual amnesia, and this will actually act out because this becomes behavioral, becomes addictions. Addictions don't always have to be drugs and alcohol. Addictions could be anything from food to sex to anything can be addiction, even the slightest thing that nobody would say, but that can be addiction for that purpose because they bypass themselves. Addiction is just a cry out, but it also creates amnesia, which keeps people maybe on lifetimes of not budging their consciousness, and they're on the samsara, get on the Ferris wheel again, the same Ferris wheel, because you're always connected to the same light that's a fragmented light because you haven't dealt with yourself. And then maybe you're in such a state. Anybody that's still trying to do spiritual practices has some knowledge and has some kind of awakening, but just at this point not wanting to deal with themselves in a very healing aspect, or be real, or just want to take one side of spirituality and not dealing with the other, right? As we know, this will always be this. There's always going to be to the yin to the yang. Even in the higher densities, there's yin to the yang. They just don't have the polarity just to pull you down in its density as they become less and less a bothersome. But they can be there. But the wisdom you have now, you see it automatically. You see, you know, there's another side to what you get. You know, the other side to transcendence is, you know, going down, dwindling down type of thing, or bypassing would be the other side of it. The balance would be transcend you to balance you, but you tend to, the bypassing can fake the funk that it's transcending, but you just avoided the pitfall, you just avoided the process. I hope you guys through this definitely know the difference between transcending and bypassing, and hope this helps you transcend and practice the transcending and just go ahead through it. It's tough for you to do it, go through it, because when you go through it, you're going to get such strength and knowledge and wisdom that you'll know, I've been lifted up, I've transcended something, and now I can transcend anything. You guys have a great day. Let's transcend together. All right, have a great day.